Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Here we go. What an amazing week. Today is Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And what a week that we've had. Every week is great here, and I say that every week. But Monday, Stefan Schwartz was here, a pioneer of remote viewing, and to have somebody of his caliber on the show meant a lot to me. It was a great show. And last night, Wally Wagner and discussing religion in that context was a real eye opener for me. It was really cool. I'm here to get my learn on, and we're going to do that tonight. Adam Nimoy is with us. And yes, the son of Leonard Nimoy, and we are going to talk about, obviously, his life and what he has learned. But I also want to, now everybody here is used to why I do this show. I do this show for me. Okay, I don't do it for you. I bring on guests that I want to learn from. I'm here to learn. And if I can learn something, then we're all going to do that together. And on this show, I talk about guitars, I talk about food, talk about music, talk about film, comedy, UFOs, consciousness, physics, science. It's just so varied because these are the subjects that interest me. And tonight I get to do all of that with Adam. He's going to be here with us in just a minute, and it's going to be a great conversation, so get ready for that. I do want to remind everybody I have 4 big events in the second half of 2024. Coming up next in a couple of weeks, I'll be in Miami hosting and co-hosting the 2024 Conscious Awards in Miami, Florida, along with Giorgio Tsoukalos. It's a full weekend of events. The links for that are below. That is August 3rd and the 4th. And then Contact at Sea, hosting that cruise to Alaska, September 6th through the 13th. Again, the links are below. Then I head back over to Egypt in October. Come join us for that. I believe it's sold out, but you can get on the waiting list. There are always changes. That's October 3rd through the 14th. And then I'm heading to South America, to Peru in November. And that's November 15th through the 27th. So come and hang out with me. Let's go see the world together in 2024. There you go. Okay, so tonight, Adam Nimoy is with us. Now, he teaches film today. His career is very wide, and I really like that side of it, from the business and business affairs side and the law side of the music industry, and then film and television and directing for TV. And today he teaches that knowledge. And hopefully tonight I'll get to learn something. Born and raised right here in Southern California, where he is now, where I reside. His website is adamnimoy.com. The link for that is below. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Adam Nimoy. He's right there. Adam, good evening, young man.
Good evening, Jimmy. Thank you for having me on.
This is going to be great. This is going to be great. Now, here, hopefully tonight will be a bunch of first-time things. That's my goal. So let's start with this, though. You get the first-time guest disclaimer, and so you have to accept it. And here's the disclaimer. The disclaimer is, Adam, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. Now you have to accept, and then we can move on.
Oh, I can accept that, Jimmy. I think I can do
that. Now, thank you for that. Now, here's I'm going to start. I want to say this. James Lipton, the best. And I always try to think about what would James Lipton ask. And then I back off of that, Adam. What wouldn't he ask? Right? Then I'm on to something because he's so good at it. So this is where we're going to start. Life is a journey. We all know that. You get a time machine. Do you change anything?
Well, that's not a rhetorical question. That's a real question.
That's a real question. Do you change it? Life is a journey, and the romantic side of that people think of, going back in time and changing something in their life. And I always wonder why somebody would want to do that. So that's my question. Would you go back and change anything?
No, Jimmy, that's not my philosophy. I'm a guy in recovery, and we take life on life's terms, and I would just try to change myself, quite frankly.
Why is it that most, not all, most want to change things or have somebody change them for them instead of focusing on the self and just going day by day?
Well, again, that's the mantra of recovery. It's all focused on the self. I've been going to AA meetings for 20 years, and we always read the serenity prayer at the end of the meeting, which is basically to accept other people and the courage to change the things we can, which is ourselves. The focus is on yourself. So I'm just trying to live one day at a time and be in the moment and be, patient, tolerant, accepting of other people. I have no control over the people. That was my experience. I learned that the hard way with my dad, quite frankly. And it's kind of a credo I live by, is just to live and let live, and try to do the best to be the best person I can. And again, it's about changing myself. I mean, I've been sober 20 years now, and I'm still working on trying to improve myself and grow emotionally, because I was in arrested development when I started using every day for 30 years.
We all, when I say we all, we have issues, whatever they may be, that we don't talk about. We don't. We keep it inside, and we have these questions about being frustrated and finding direction, where it's because we don't let those out and confront them head on. Do you think that's what I found, and it was just really strange that once I started looking at myself, I was like, well, okay, it's not everybody else. It just may be me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole different perspective and looking at the world. Things get a lot easier that way. That's my philosophy. It's instead of the world just treating me bad, it's like I got to just change my attitude. Everything's a matter of perspective, Jimmy. And it's just when someone cuts me off on the 405, it's like my whole attitude now is that person really needs to get where they're going because there's an emergency. And I don't take these things personally anymore.
It's so funny. I'm just going to tell the audience, Adam and I were talking before the show, and we were just having a conversation, but I felt relaxed, but I also felt like I was listening to myself. What you just said right there about the 405, which I've said on this show, by the way, that's how much I have changed. Because you just don't know what's going on in somebody else's world. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
Right.
Why let that affect you? Because they don't know what's going on in your world. So why should it be any different? Relax. They have their reason for doing their thing. And it's really strange. If everybody in the world, Adam, at the micro level, individually, If that was the case, this would be a different planet, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think people will be more tolerant of one another. That's for sure. We got a lot of conflict in this world today, and it's pretty sad. There's a lot of polarization and misunderstanding and miscommunication. And I would rather, instead of voicing my opinion, I'm more interested in what other people are thinking and feeling, and I try to be helpful to other people. And so I have a whole other attitude now. But I had to work. It took a while to get to that point.
You and I are about the same age, and I want to ask you this because you just mentioned something that I think is very important. That it seems that everything is polarized today. Is it more polarized, or is that it's more the optics are there, and we have the ability to see the polarization versus things seem pretty polarized in the 60s, right? There was a lot going on there too. Is it that we are just more aware and we have everything second by second in front of us?
Well, yeah, I would agree with that too. I just think that we're just in a really weird space, in the course of our history. I mean, I studied history when I was at college, and I think we're in a really tough period right now, having coming out of COVID and the political spectrum in America. There's two wars going on that are high profile. There's a lot of changes going on. It's a very tough period for a lot of people. And I just think it affects everybody. There's just underlies everything. A lot of changes going on in the entertainment industry now, which is what my town is, LA is all about. It's a changing world, and it's becoming very challenging. And it's different than the way things have been for a while. I think it is more stuff is happening. I think it's much more difficult now than it used to be. It's not just the media and the delivery of information that everybody has access to. I think that's probably a part of it that feeds on it. I just think that we're all going through a rough period of humankind history, and people should be more tolerant and loving and kind to one another to get through it.
The term Trekkie is strange to me because if we go back to that skit on Saturday Night Live, right, with Shatner, and I remember seeing that live, and I didn't get it. Okay, I understand it's comedy and all of that, but I didn't understand the deep undertones that were actually there. Today, I find myself now I'm a huge fan of the franchise for a lot of different reasons, but I missed it growing up. And were you in and out of that world, or did you just kind of step back away from it?
I mean, I'm not sure I understand, Jimmy. From which world? From the
Trekkie world.
Oh, the Trekkie world. Well, Jimmy, I'm the first Trekkie. I need to inform you because of I'm going to be shamelessly promote here because of this photograph. Do you see that picture?
I do.
Yeah. Well, that's me on the set in July of 1966 before the show even aired. So I was the first Trekkie, and yeah, I was in and out of that world for a while because I kind of like had my fill of it. And when I was going to college, I wasn't watching TV as much anymore. When Star Trek was on syndication 5 nights a week, but a lot of my friends in college were watching it, and I kind of got back into it, and I've kind of been a devotee of the original series ever since. I mean, the fact of the matter is, cosplay began with me in July of 1966. When they were shooting this episode about 5 weeks before the show aired. So, and now Trekkie is a misnomer. Apparently, everybody wants to be called Trekker, but that's more PC apparently.
Is that true? Is that true? Really?
Well, I don't know, but because I don't read the boards. I don't pay attention. I mean, I'm happy to be called a Trekkie. That's what we were called. That's what Gene Roddenberry called us, and that's just the way it was.
Now, going back to the original series, when I watch it today, I see and feel what I missed back originally. Plus, I was a lot younger. That apparently, the way that I take it today was that it was a social commentary of the time set in science fiction.
Right.
So, right, it's kind of like a romantic comedy sci-fi film. So you got the romantic comedy for your girlfriend, you got the sci-fi for the guy, and you kind of dip your toes in both, right? And that's kind of what happened with the original series. I feel today. Am I wrong in having that viewpoint?
Well, no, the original series was written by Gene Roddenberry to make social commentary, hidden under the guise of science fiction. The guy was trying to do it in contemporary TV shows, and he was getting into trouble over that. I mean, apparently NBC had this rule that the news and entertainment are completely different from one another, and they didn't want to see social commentary. But that was what Star Trek was. It was about about a lot of things, about racism, intolerance, and pestilence, and a lot of things that were just a lot of moral issues about fascism, about democracies, about spreading colonialism. It was all that stuff, but it was hidden under the guise of sci-fi and some very funny shows and some campy shows and some really poignant shows about friendship and honor and morality and loyalty and these issues. So I think that's why Gene Roddenberry intentionally decided to hide everything in the under the guise of sci-fi, because then the suits at NBC wouldn't know what he was up to.
And that's an interesting point, because network executives, if anybody figures out the mystery of that, please let me know. It's one of the biggest mysteries out there.
Yeah.
But the network executives would say and feel those things about the show and the cross-pollination of current events. I totally get that. Do you think that the audience saw it that way, though, in its first run?
No, I mean, I was in the audience. I think we just saw it as pure entertainment and, cool shows and guys wearing cool costumes and Spock in his cool makeup. It was just cool to watch. I just love the show. This is the first, 66 was the first fall season when all three networks aired their primetime schedule in full living color. I mean, it was a really cool time to be watching TV. And I just thought, Star Trek was just entertainment to me back then. But of course, I was 10 years old.
Yeah, and I think that's why network executives. That's the frustration behind it, isn't it? You can't change the system, but the show wasn't what they thought it was. You know what I mean? The perception of it didn't ruffle the feathers of America. It was just great science fiction, and it was great storytelling.
Yeah.
Let it go, right?
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, there were a couple of, bummer episodes, particularly in the third season. The writing was off. Gene Roddenberry left the series. I mean, it's hard to maintain. They made a lot of shows in 3 years. I think 79 episodes. It's just a lot of material they have to crank out. But some of them are really poignant, and a lot of the Spock journeys I loved. A lot of the Spock episodes. I have a lot of favorites. I'm still a big fan of the original series. I still like turning it on late at night once in a while, just dropping in the middle of it and being entertained and having a sense of nostalgia.
I did that like 3 summers ago, Adam. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it. And I started with season 1, episode 1, and burned it through everything in like 3 days. And I was committed to it. But it was really, really fascinating. And here's the other thing. When you think you remember it all and you know it all, and then you go back and you watch it again and you catch those little things.
Yeah.
And that's what really really surprised me. It was almost like watching it as brand new, and that says a lot. That show really had legs, like real legs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing, the experience that I had, because I stopped watching for a while and I didn't have a TV set when I was in college. But then when I got to I started college in Berkeley in the January of '77, and I found out that when I went to dorm rooms to study with my friends, everybody would cram into the TV room at 5 o'clock. And then I thought, oh, well, what is this all about? And then I started watching again. And then I had a girlfriend in college, and she was from Switzerland. She'd never heard of the show. And we started watching at 5 o'clock, and it was like, this is a really cool show. It's really fun to watch. It just looked so good. It was shot so well. And Dad and Bill and DeForest Kelley were just freaking awesome together.
The spin-off series. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. And still haven't. The Deep Space Nine, that era, Star Trek Continues, that I haven't seen it, but I have been watching all of Strange New Worlds and Discovery, and there's something about it where I think that it's clicking. Picard, no, I don't know anything about it. But what do you think of Discovery and Strange New Worlds?
Well, I love those shows. I mean, they're very different from, they have changed quite a bit from the original series. And sometimes they feel like it's really not what the original philosophy was about. It's something entirely new. But I think they're cool shows, and I'm glad that they keep trucking on and trying to find new issues to deal with, and no new political social issues to grapple with. I love the people who are in those shows. I more power to them. I don't always diligently watch everything, and sometimes I have some disappointments, but I had that with the original series. But I think it's heartening that Star Trek lives on. I mean, look, the point is that the word is good. As John Lennon would say, the word is good. That there's going to be a future, that mankind will work together, that the Federation of Planets will be working together, that we have not destroyed the Earth, that there's hope for humankind. That's why a lot of people love the message of Star Trek.
Your unique position to be the son of Leonard Nimoy and Spock, which became this pop culture and worldwide market, right? That's what it became.
Yeah.
Did you understand the hugeness and implications that it was about to have?
No, I didn't really understand that. Again, when I got to Berkeley and I was trying to find a roommate, trying to find a room, the place is just too many students and not enough housing. But I interviewed with a guy who had a second bedroom in a 2-bedroom apartment, and he said to me, when he found out, he asked my last name and asked me if I was related to Leonard Nimoy, and I said yeah. And he said that I could have the apartment if we went right then and there to the Federation Trading Post on Telegraph Avenue. Now, I didn't know what he was talking about, but we went to this store, and Jimmy, I'm telling you, it was all things Star Trek. It was just a mind blower. It was posters, it was games. There was they had costume uniforms. They had these little postcards that had a picture of me. This picture of me with my dad, on the rack. Like I hadn't seen it in years, and it just kind of blew my mind that there was all this merchandising going on. Because during that period, the weird thing was that none of the actors were making any money off of Star Trek. You got like 3 runs, reruns and residuals, and you were done. And the only one making any money was the studio selling it to in syndication. And the syndicators were making a fortune. And there was all this merchandising going on. And this is a big issue that my dad had with the studio, because he was supposed to get, a royalty check out of them for all that merchandising. And there was a lot happening, but he never received anything. And their attitude was, sue us.
Isn't it funny that every successful sitcom has that same issue, right? It's like wash, rinse, repeat. It happened with Happy Days or whatever. Just pick the series, and it's where the networks feel, and the marketing companies behind it, immune. They have immunity, and they do as they please, and everybody else just wants a successful show, right? Why is it, what's the book called? What Makes Sammy Run? Should everybody in film school read that book?
No. No, but we should have.
Did you read it?
No, what's behind it?
Oh, What Makes Sammy Run?
Yeah.
Oh, it was written in the early 50s.
Yeah.
And it's about the head of a film studio, like his deathbed confession of him growing up and what made him the vicious, murderous criminal studio head that he was, and what he did to get to the top. And it was written in like 1950. And you read it, it's like, well, yeah, that's exactly what's going on today. But that's kind of the attitude where everybody just feels like they have some kind of immunity to do what they want, and we let them get away with it. And I've never figured that part out.
Well, I mean, Jimmy, the fact is, I mean, now if you're talking about the Hollywood in general, everything is changing right now, right at this moment, everything is changing. I mean, they're about to sell Paramount Pictures, which made all things Star Trek, and who's to say, what's going to happen, when it gets taken over. Studios are really struggling because, no one's going to the theaters anymore. No one buys DVDs. Everything is streaming. Everything's going to TikTok. I mean, it's a really tough time for people in the industry. A lot of people leaving LA because they just can't find work anymore. I mean, I worked in the industry for about 10 seasons, but now it's incredibly difficult and competitive to find anything to do. A lot of work is leaving town, and I mean, it's a whole different ball game right now. My daughter's in the industry; she works at Paramount, and it's really difficult.
The community here, I'm talking about where we live. It doesn't matter. Los Angeles County. And I talk about it, Adam, a lot on this show, where this audience listens from around the world, and I try to instill in them actually what goes on here, because you live in Burbank or Studio City or Encino or Sherman Oaks or Glendale, Pasadena. It doesn't matter. Pick the cities. Santa Monica, Culver City. Your neighbors are set dressers. They're costume designers. They're in catering. They're in lighting. They're in set design. They're in rentals. They're actors. They're writers, right? That is what supports this. And nearly overnight, just like it did with the music industry, and you know about that as well as anybody, this is being flipped over very, very quickly. Is LA County going to survive?
I don't know. A lot of people I know, who are rely on the business of the industry are hurting. A lot of people. Things have not come back since COVID, since the strike we had, the 2 strikes we had. It's really challenging. I mean, all eyes were really on, David Ellison, who's taking over Paramount, and to see what he's going to do. I mean, the guy's got to cut like $2 billion or something, and combine divisions and rearrange things. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame now. It's tough to say. I think a lot of people. There's been a lot of articles written about people leaving town because they simply can't find work anymore. Very competitive, and it's a shrinking market. So it's hard to say, what's going to happen, but it's a really, really challenging time for people in the industry.
And what are the other part of it is the students. What do you tell them? Everybody's got stars in their eyes, and they want to make The Godfather, right? They want to make 2001: A Space Odyssey. They want to have a film of theirs in the Film Institute, in the top 100, and we all get that, but it's the times are changing. How do you let the students know? It's always been tough, but it's about to get crazy.
Yeah, well, I actually have, that challenge to figure out because I'm going to be giving a commencement speech to the graduating class at my former film school that I taught at for many years, the New York Film Academy. They've asked me to be the keynote speaker. And what do you tell these people? There's no work out there, and I'm so sorry. I hope you had a good time. Look, the fact of the matter, Jimmy, is that people do this stuff. They pursue their passion because they need to, they have to. And you know what it's like in music. It's the same thing. It's freaking brutal, man, to try to make it in the music industry, especially now. The whole dynamic of that industry has been changing dramatically over the past 5, 10 years. And only now, according to my friends in the music legal business, is the streaming services really beginning to pay, to the point where you can support yourself. But it's very challenging for people. And my attitude is my dad's attitude was always you just got to do what you got to do, and what you're passionate about, and do what you can to make ends meet and get by. I think people are going to still be making films no matter what. Whether or not they're going to find an exhibitor for those films is another issue, or even financing. That's the issue. We don't really know yet what's going to happen with conventional films because there's no money in it.
What's more important, cinematography or the actor? Oh, by the way, how's my framing? My framing good? Is my framing good? Looks
good to me. It looks good.
Is my framing good? Am I good?
Yeah.
Am I good?
Yeah, you look good from all sides, man.
I'm good.
You look beautiful from all sides.
What is more with
Well, that's a great question, Jimmy. That's a great question. I have an answer to that question.
And I want to hear it.
All right, here's the deal, man. We teach three things in film school. Three things. Story, story, story. That's the most important. Good stories. Now, as a matter of fact, we really do teach three things in film school. One is story. The second is performance, i.e. the actor. And the third is technique. All the technical stuff you got to do to get your story on film, which includes cinematography. And I love cinematographers. They run the set. Directors rely on them. We collaborate with them. I'm a devotee of those guys. I love cinematographers. I mean, that is the one person that you really have to rely on when you're going to direct a show or a film, is your relationship with that cinematographer. There's no doubt about it. But really, the bottom line, man, the most important thing is story. It's about story. We want good stories. And then after that, we want we want good performances, because people will forgive bad lighting or bad sound or bad production design much faster than they'll forgive, holes in your plot or performance issues. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
It's what I catch myself doing is when I'm watching something. I've done this for years. It's nothing new, but I find myself saying out loud, that tracks. That doesn't track. Right? It's like
yeah. I love that.
And it'll kill. It could be the most beautiful framed shot, light edit, but if the story goes off, or if there's filler, or if there's something if there's some fluff that doesn't need to be there, and you go to the next edit, and you're like, well, that was a waste of my time, right?
Yeah.
That's what's most important is to have a story and a screenplay that tracks. It's really that simple, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's, a lot of these shows that are streaming, that's what attracts people to them. It's the storyline, something about that resonates with people. That's what they're that's most people don't say, "Oh, it's beautifully shot." Oh, what it's such a great looking show. They never say shit like that. They say stuff like, "I just really relate to it. I really like it," or "I don't relate to the story and I don't like it." No one gives a shit about how, technically wonderful it is. It's a lot about performance, but mostly it's just about whether or not the story resonates with people.
How and that's such a great point, and that's why I can go back to certain people, like a Kubrick, or even Spielberg, for that matter, where the story is there.
Yeah.
But my goodness, man, the editing and the shots are just as beautiful as the story. And that's the rare combination, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's great when all that's working, man. And it's just there's a synergy going on, and everybody's into it. It's just great when it's all there. There's a lot of flawless movies that have been made over the last 100+ years that we've had cinema, and there's so many great filmmakers, and there's just so many great films. I got a long list of classic films where it just all came together: the story, the performances, and they're just beautiful films to look at. So,
Can we stay there for a second?
yeah,
Um, the if you don't mind, because I just love the medium, right? I just love the medium, and that includes television too. But um, the the up and coming directors today, I feel that the one thing that they could learn, if there is a secret, is don't wear a mask. Just be yourself when you're shooting, and don't be concerned about the other stuff. If they're going to resonate with it, they're going to resonate with it. Don't get bogged down in the minutia. Just be yourself and let that come out. Is that
yeah.
something you can teach?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, that was my dad's whole philosophy. Look, the guy didn't set out, to create a pop culture icon. That's not what the intention is. It's just he just tried to find a way to find a personal connection to the character he was playing and give everything he had to that character. I mean, no one knew that Star Trek was going to become the phenomenon it was. They're just trying to do good work. That's the whole point. Is just do good work. And that may be old school, but I totally believe in that philosophy. My dad was totally in line with that philosophy. It just doesn't matter. The rest is popularity or the crumbs of greatness. He used to love to quote Victor Hugo on that. It's a matter of whether or not you find some personal connection, the material you're doing, and you get passionate about what you're making and collaborate with people. Cinema is a collaborative art form. It can be a lot of fun. It can be very exciting. There's a real synergy in it, and that's what it's all about. It's the process of doing it and not worrying about the end result so much.
I did a short film. It was shot on film uh, with James Doohan, and shot this 19. I want to get the year right. 96, I think it was 96.
Yeah.
And we had this set built, kind of looked like the Enterprise a little bit, and this thing, but it was music business stuff, right? Okay, all right, a corporate thing, and I'm in it. And later, it was like a few days later, we shot for 3 days. We had our Christmas party, and James was there. And he pulled me aside and he goes, I just wanted to say something to you, Jimmy. I said, what? He said, we haven't talked about Star Trek once. I said, yeah. He said, thank you. It was like this bizarre thing. And I thought to myself at that point, I bet, yeah, I get it. But would you ever get tired of it? Probably at some point. But it was weird for him to just go out of his way to say that, because I am sure that that's all anybody wants to do is go down memory lane that he has addressed a million times.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the name of the gig. My dad did that for 50 years. So that's just kind of the name of the game. Even though my dad did a lot of other stuff, he was best known for that role, and that's what people want to hear and talk about.
One quick question. Now, this In Search Of, right? That was his show, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, In Search Of, there was like 5 things at that time that were all kind of like the same. But In Search Of, um, was there, and this is directed at you, was there an interest in the paranormal and the supernatural in a family setting that was away from everything else? Did you guys think or talk about the paranormal, supernatural, and ET and Contact?
Well, my dad, yeah, he was very interested in SETI, the search for extraterrestrial life in the universe. Yeah, I mean that was something that was of interest to him. Yeah, I think he was kind of interested in that stuff. He loved space exploration, and he loved being invited to NASA, and he would come home with models of spacecraft, and bring them home, and I think he enjoyed that on some level, definitely. I mean, In Search of was more important, frankly, because it was the bread and butter that kept us going in the '70s when Star Trek was over and there was nothing else to, no one was doing anything else. My dad was a real hustler and always tried to keep generating income, and that was really a regular income source for him. I think he just enjoyed doing it. And in fact, when my dad and I were making this documentary on Spock, we were thinking about even using that kind of format, that my dad would host this documentary as almost like he was hosting In Search of, and talk about what it was like making the original series and the movies. So I loved In Search of. I thought it was really fun. They were fun shows. Some of them were, a good friend of mine used to call them, some of the episodes, placebo. They would slip in these placebo episodes, that were like, what was that about? They were just filler. So you have that. That was inevitable. But yeah, I think my dad was really interested in that stuff. I think it was really fascinating for him.
And how about yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was like reading stuff like Chariots of the Gods and, extraterrestrial life having visited planet Earth and, all the signs that they left behind. I was into that kind of stuff and unexplained phenomenon, lost civilizations. That appealed to me. I mean, I tried to get my dad to make an episode about the Etruscans. These are the precursors to the Romans. And we've never really figured out their language. They were kind of an advanced, mysterious people. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that one made. That stuff was of interest to me. But also I got to tell you, just being on the ride with my dad. I mean, he made an In Search of episode that was totally off, kind of the beaten path. And I don't even know how that fit into the whole genre, but he did an In Search of Vincent Van Gogh because that was of interest. Vincent was of interest to him, and he was going to be performing in a one-man show about Vincent Van Gogh. So they did an episode In Search of Vincent, and we went with a camera crew to the south of France and to Auvers in the north of France, where he ended his life. So I love for that reason alone, I love In Search of, that I was able to have that experience. You know what I mean?
What are you just brought up Eric von Daniken, right? And Chariots of the Gods. And when you go back to 69, 70, 71, I saw the film in the theater with my mom in 71, 72, read the book. And just before it couldn't get much bigger than the phenomenon that it was and its effect on pop culture. And then today, where we have Ancient Aliens doing season 20 or whatever it is right now, and these questions, going back to Star Trek or Lost in Space, and that these questions have always been there for the world, haven't they? It's just right now the interest is really, really high.
Yeah, I think the interest has always been there, man. It's like, how did we get here? And uh, uh, were we visited early on? And what are these signs that are left behind? And how did we go from? How did we evolve over 6 million years? And I mean, it's all a mystery, man. It's very cool to be considering all that. And ancient aliens, I still think it's cool. You know, um, I don't know. I mean, I think just like for me personally, it's like the thing that really appealed to me in college was the whole Carlos Castaneda thing. This just magicianship and spirituality and the two worlds, and there's other stuff going on. I mean, I still believe that to this day, that there's stuff going on. When something happens, you kind of go, "Whoa, what was that?" You know what I mean? I mean, it's still how you have
I
to,
do.
yeah, it's great, just to walk around the planet and see that there's weird stuff going on every day that we're not really aware of because everybody just thinks we're stuck on the 405. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that we're on the freaking planet, and it's a weird experience, and we haven't been here very long when you consider the planet's 4.6 billion years old, and we've only been, and civilized humankind has only been around for 3 or 4 or 5,000 years. It's like, whoa, how did we get here?
You
So
go when the first time I went to Peru, Adam,
yeah.
walking around and doing my thing, and said, I turned to the person, I'm leading this group. I turned to this person next to me and I go, Carlos Castaneda was not wrong. Right.
Yeah.
That's what came out of my mouth. Right. And he goes, who? I said, never mind, man. Just never. I'm in a moment. Just let me do my
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens on the planet, man. I think it's very cool, that people are still exploring this, that you're still talking about, you're still interested in it. I wish I were, did a deeper dive into it, because it still fascinates me. But my interests are elsewhere right now, but I still think it's very cool.
Somebody just popped up this question in the chat, which I never pay attention to, but it caught my eye. It's an honest question. I'm going to ask it. Would you play Spock's son?
Well, what a great question. Would I play Spock's son? I've been asked that question twice, actually, in my lifetime. Yeah, when my dad was making Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and they had a scene where, a young Spock was going through like puberty and Pon farr and, his 7-year itch with Robin Curtis as he was growing up, and they were recreating Spock. He was evolving into the Spock we've come to know and love. My dad said to me, "Hey, do you want to play this part? You want to play the kid, the young Spock?" And I thought to myself, I had to really think about that for a while and really ponder it deeply. And within about 5 seconds, I said, "No, thanks. That's cool with me. Thank you so much." It was just not something that interested
Why?
me.
What is it? The Shadow, or was it something else?
No, I didn't want to have sex on screen as
Oh.
doing Pon farr. I just didn't think it was appropriate. I don't want to do Pon farr, on screen. I mean, I love Robin Curtis. I think she was amazing as Savick in that movie, but I just didn't. I wasn't prepared to have my debut be, a Vulcan sex scene. Sorry, no. And recently, I was asked by these guys. Rod Roddenberry is getting involved with a lot of this whole anamorphic thing where they're recreating the look of everybody through AI, and and they asked me if I wanted to do the acting part of my dad, and they would put his features on top of me and do that. And I toyed around with that for a while. But the fact of the matter is, Jimmy, and I really appreciate the question. I do, and I really love Star Trek, and I love talking about my dad. But there's a line for me that I don't want to cross. I mean, I am my own man. I have my own interests. I have my own achievements. And I'm not an actor, so I never really wanted to be an actor. Although I went to acting class to learn about the craft of acting, just so I could become a better director. But I never had any intention of being in front of the camera. Just not my thing. I'd much rather be behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've got so much respect for actors. I'm just going to say it right now. That's the toughest gig. And look, I host a TV show. I've hosted many TV shows. I'm currently hosting a TV show. I'm doing this. I have no issues with this because I'm not faking it, right? I'm not acting. I'm not acting. This is easy. It's my gig. I don't know. I have a lot of respect. Directing, I would love, I do that and that's fine. Acting is a whole nother ball game, and a real good actor is amazing to me, and I have just immense respect for the craft.
Well, so do I, man. It's really challenging to do the work that they do. I mean, uh, I love the craft. I love the work that my dad did. I love watching him. I love watching great talent. I mean, there's so much talent in this town, and I love being in acting class because it was great for me as a director. Because one of the first things I learned was, memorizing lines can be really challenging for some people, and that forced me to give less notes, if and not talk to people, not talk to actors, let them do their thing unless they needed some help, because I didn't want to scramble their brain with all the stuff they have to remember, all the dialogue. That alone is a big part of the craft. But also you got to understand, Jimmy, it's about also being about celebrity. I mean, the whole purpose of acting is well, not the whole purpose, but a lot of people in Hollywood are here to get more and more work, and it's really about the whole idea of celebrity and being out there and being in demand and being in the public eye and having fans. I mean, this is something my father really understood. It is a fan-based business. And my dad was very good with the fans. And that was something that I was never going to be able to do. I mean, I didn't want to go to a restaurant and be mobbed by people. That was never my thing. That's why I really enjoyed this being in a celebrity family, but not being the celebrity. And I really had a lot of respect for my dad. I mean, we go out and people would mob him immediately and want autographs. And he was very patient with the fans. He was very good with people. I don't think I think there was one or two times where he said, I'm sorry, I can't give an autograph now. I'm out to dinner with my family. But other than that, one of my favorite pastimes would be to walk around with him, like in the Westwood Village and watch people just their jaws drop when they recognize my dad. You know what I mean? That kind of gave me a thrill. That was always fun to do. But, I mean, and my dad would say there's no school for celebrity. If you have a breakthrough role and people recognize you, your life changes. Our life changed like within weeks after Star Trek aired, our lives completely changed, and we were a celebrity family. So it can be very challenging for people. There's a lot of pressure. Your personal life is under a microscope. It's difficult to take on that role.
This isn't a softball question. It's an honest question. But after your book and then the decision, to direct and crowdfund For the Love of Spock, that's a lot of work that goes into that. But was it a difficult decision about how you were going to approach the film versus your childhood and what direction you were going to take that?
Yeah, I mean, it was easy at first. I was making that film with my dad. It was going to be all about Spock, and my dad was very clear. He didn't want it to be a Leonard Nimoy biopic. We were just going to focus on Spock, and we thought there was enough material there to do that. The origins of Spock, the evolution of Spock, the impact of Spock on popular culture, and why the character still resonated 50 years later. We were making the film, to help commemorate 50 years of Star Trek, and then my dad passed away. And there was all this outpouring of emotion about Leonard Nimoy, the artist, the actor, the humanitarian, the photographer, the writer, the producer, the director. That's when it was pretty clear that we needed to expand the film to include the life of Leonard Nimoy. It was going to be in part a biopic about him, in addition to about Spock. But while we were making the film, a lot of people involved with the project, the producers and the editor, were saying, even my stepmother, my dad's widow, was saying, hey, you know what? If you want to make this film unique, you should include your own journey with your dad and the ups and downs of being the son of Leonard Nimoy in the film, because that would make it unique. And that was something I fought for a while, because I didn't want to be, it wasn't a film about me, and I didn't want to be self-indulgent about it. And I was worried people would see it that way, but they insisted that we should do it, and we did put that storyline in there. But it was always a matter of the C story. A being Spock, B being Leonard, and C being me and Leonard. And thankfully, I had a really good editor who knew nothing about Star Trek, but she had a lot of experience in film, cutting film. One of these old school editors, and she's the one who really kept the balance, intact, and knew how much to put in and what to leave out.
Were you surprised? There's a reason for this question, by the way. Were you surprised when you look back at, I mentioned Saturday Night Live and the Shatner sketch, and the fan world that is out there, and it's extreme and it's intense, and there's a dedication there, and that I appreciate. But when you write the book and then the documentary comes out, were you surprised about the amount of support that was there? That the Spock fans weren't offended by and large. Somebody always finds a way to get offended by something, but that it was okay to go ahead and talk about it.
Well, yeah, because I mean, really, it's an homage to my dad. I mean, some fans were concerned about contributing to our Kickstarter campaign to fund the film, because they were worried that I was going to, diss my dad about some of the weird stuff that happened with him when I was growing up and stuff. And, that wasn't the case at all. I mean, the fact of the matter is my dad and I reconciled. 7 years before he passed away. We had a really close and loving relationship, and I intended to honor him in the film, and I think the response has been pretty positive, that we did right by him, and we did a pretty good job of that, and I was really happy with the fan response. Frankly, I was really grateful that fans came out and supported the film and were touched by it, and it resonated with them, because I think we captured a lot of the essence of why people are so enamored with that character. So that was pretty cool.
And was there, I don't want to wax philosophical, and philosophy is something that bothers me a lot, at least with the rock star philosophers out there. But did you have a sense of relief? Release is a better word.
Release, yeah. I mean, look, making the film after my dad died was pretty cathartic. It's like you get to like process and mourn the guy in ways that most people don't get to do it. I was looking at all this stuff. I was looking at everything. I was looking at the fanzines and photographs and interviews, all the roles my dad was in, a lot of the old episodes. We're interviewing people from the original series and old friends of my dad. I mean, it was like a major, it was a big deal for me to be going through all that material while we were making the film. I mean, most people don't have that opportunity when they lose a parent. So I was really lucky. I was very grateful that we made the film immediately after he died. I mean, he died in February of 2015, and in April of 2016, we premiered that film at the Tribeca Film Festival. That was pretty fast work. We really worked hard and worked fast to get that thing out. And it was a very satisfying experience. Let me put it to you that way.
And it certainly must have been emotional too. It reminds me of Steve Cropper, the guitar player from Stax. And, he co-wrote and produced Dock of the Bay, right? Otis Redding. And he records the song. Otis walks out the door of Stax Records, turns around and waves and says, "I'll see you in 2 days and we'll cut lead vocals." Right? That was a scratch track that was laid down. Otis departs and dies, right? Plane crash. Steve Cropper said that was the most difficult thing he's ever done in his life, because Stax Records came back and said, "Get this record mixed. We've got to get this out." And he said, "Otis, my best friend, just died, and I've got to listen to this over and over again and do the edits and do the record." It was a very emotional process.
Yeah.
Did you face those same types of emotions as you enter post-production and you've got to do your job as director?
Yeah. I mean, it was a joyful process for me, because I really got to relive a lot of the great times that I had with my dad. And I got to relive a lot of his successes. It was really a great time. We got very lucky too when we were making the film, that we found, we were able to get some footage of this, whole edifice that was built in honor of my dad at Burning Man that year, because my daughter was there at Burning Man, and they had this huge collage of the life of Leonard Nimoy, and we got film of it and we had photos of it, and they burned it down. We got to build this funeral pyre, and that's one of my favorite moments in the film, because I mean that it was emotional for everybody that we lost Leonard. A lot of people felt the loss. A lot of people, it was amazing. It was an avalanche of outpouring of emotion, and a lot of people that I hadn't spoken to in years were contacting me because they heard it on the news. So very emotional, and I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. I had great people working with me, and then I had some skills, and I kind of knew what I was doing after being in TV for 10 years.
Now, I'm going to say this before the break. Spock was good. Might not have been his best, though. Fringe. Walter Bell. William Bell. No, he nailed it, man. He nailed it.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Did you? I hope that you saw it. Did you see the cartoon episode of that?
No.
Yeah. Go watch Fringe. They go into an alternate universe that's animated.
Okay.
Yeah. And your dad, I'm telling you, it's just so good. It's so good. Let's take our break. Our guest tonight, Adam Nimoy. Adam, stay right there. We'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I want to invite you to come to Alaska with me on the Contact at Sea cruise. It is this September 6th through the 13th, 2024. We are on the largest ship in the Pacific Ocean. That's right, the Ovation of the Seas. It's an amazing cruise, and a ship this big is so much fun. We've got lots of activities and lots of great speakers. We are leaving from Seattle to Sitka, Alaska, Skagway, Juneau. We're going to end the cruise in Victoria, BC, and arrive in Seattle on September 13th. We've got a lot of amazing speakers, including we've got Seth Shostak, Scott Walter, Stephen Bassett, Daniel Sheehan, Daryl Sims, Mas Adi, Vivian Chavez, Grant Cameron, Geraldine Orozco, Misha Johnston, and Melanie Aguirre, and a whole lot more. All you have to do is go to divinetravels.com. You can also go to contactatsea.com. Both are going to take you to a full event schedule. You can check in, look at the boat, get things ready to go, and maybe get a cabin with a balcony. That's what I'm talking about. Come see the whales. Come check it all out. Let's go to Alaska this September 6th through the 13th, 2024 with me, Jimmy Church. Now, when you head to divinetravels.com or contactatsea.com and get signed up, you know what? Use my name, Jimmy Church. I'll see you there September 6th through the 13th, 2024. Let's go to Alaska. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours, or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Adam Nimoy is with us. And here's the thing, Adam. Let's just go right here. We all have a dad, right? We all do. It's a strange thing, a strange way how that works. And this is very personal for me to say. Very brief. I've started writing my first book. Okay. And I'm probably 50 pages in. And I keep going back to it's I want it to be about my life's experiences. And I keep coming back to my dad. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And why would somebody find this interesting? But it's just my mind flowing out. And so I want to talk about the way that you approached it in your book, number one. And number two, probably the most important question. Who narrated the audiobook?
My book? Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I had to audition for it. I passed the audition. On behalf of the band and ourselves, I hope we passed the audition. Yeah, apparently I made it in.
What was that like? It's one thing to write it. But it's another thing to relive it and go back through it and speak it. How was that for you?
Well, it's a marathon. I mean, it's a lot of work. There's 200 and some odd pages in this book, 253. It's a lot of work. It's a long haul, and it's many hours in a studio. Thankfully, I had a really good engineer who was helping me out and had a lot of experience, so he was giving me a lot of guidance. I'd not really done it before. I did some books for Star Trek related issues, but I'd never really done a book like this before. And it was good. And then you start to see like mistakes, and stuff that you want to change, or typo. I did find some typos. So we're going to get those corrected in subsequent printings. But it was a great experience.
And emotionally, do you find yourself reliving it? I'm going to say it in Film Institute style, panchromatic, right? Widescreen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the way I look at it when I'm writing it. I have a visual sense, and a lot of the stuff in my book and my new book are scenes that I had with my dad, with my mom, with my kids, with my ex-wife. I mean, I just think visually a lot more. I think it's a lot more interesting to read, frankly. It's a different approach. But I really enjoyed the writing process for that reason.
And the relationship part of this, which is broad, that is just a huge umbrella, right? The relationship part of it. Was there stuff that you held back?
Well, yeah, when I'm writing about my relationship with my dad, there's a lot of stuff I hold back because I don't want to, I'm not writing a mommy dearest memoir. I don't need to tell everything. This is where editorial comes in. I hired somebody, a nice a woman editor in New York who had a lot of experience in the publishing industry and knew nothing about Star Trek, to keep me on track here, because I want to make sure that the book resonates with people. I'm not offending people. No one wants to hear a bunch of dirty laundry about, for no reason. It's not a revenge tour kind of thing. I mean, I love my dad. I think the book really honors our relationship. which needed work. Thankfully, through 12-step recovery, we were able to reconcile with one another. I mean, I really was always proud of my dad, although we had a lot of trouble with one another. I mean, he was just somebody that I really revered and I looked up to. I really respected what he had done. I really enjoyed being his son and being, all the incredible experiences we had together with all his many successes. But we were in trouble for a while there, and some of that I am honest about, but I have to be very careful about what I put in there, and I also give him a lot of leeway because he had parents who were not really that great for him when he was growing up.
It's kind of like that car on the 405, right? There's
Oh yeah.
always something behind the story, isn't
Oh
there?
yeah, yeah. I mean, the story behind the story with my dad was when my mom used to tell me this all the time, is that he could be really hard on me. And my mom would say, as hard as he is on you, he's hardest on himself. Because my dad was, really drove himself, really pushed himself very hard. So yeah, there's a story behind the story. And a lot of times, it wasn't even about me. I mean, there's one of the events that I recount in the book was when I was having some trouble with him on the phone. He was very unhappy and drinking, and he was making The Good Mother in Toronto, a real bummer film that he was making, and he was divorcing my mom, and he was just not in a good way. And he was like, kind of like letting loose on me on the phone, and I didn't take it personally because I just felt bad for the guy. I mean, he's human, like just like everybody else. I mean, even Spock was half human, and suffered from some emotional fallout, particularly with his dad. There's an episode where Spock and his dad are not talking because his dad wanted Spock to go to the Vulcan Science Academy, and Spock wanted to join Starfleet, and his dad did not approve. That was my father's story with his parents. They wanted him to go to college, and he said, "I want to become an actor," and they basically said, "Goodbye, we're not going to help you." I mean, they were very difficult with, they were not supportive of him. So it wasn't that surprising that he and I would have some trouble together. But
What
go ahead.
I just interrupted you, Adam. I apologize for that. No, I don't. Dang it, I have a question. Which is, was there a catalyst or a moment looking back that started the friction? Do you realize that now, or was it a buildup?
Yeah, no, it was a buildup. I mean, the problem was that when I was a kid, I had trouble relating to my dad. He was just always distracted and very driven and very goal oriented. He never really had a childhood himself. I mean, he grew up very fast. Born in the Depression on the streets of Boston. Parents were immigrants from Ukraine. They lived in a village, Jimmy, in Ukraine, and they had to escape because they were killing Jews in that village, and that's why they left, and they ended up in one of the biggest urban centers in the country, Boston. They ended up in Boston, not knowing where they were or what to do, really. And and my dad grew up during the Depression, where it was all about making money and hustling and getting a job, and and I had a very different upbringing. I was raised in sunny Southern California, and when I was growing up, I was reading comic books and got totally turned on by the Amazing Spider-Man and watching all those shows you were talking about, like Lost in Space and My Favorite Martian and Man from Uncle. And I mean, there was so much great TV in the 60s. And I'm listening to all this great 60s, stuff on the radio, spearheaded by the Fab Four, and my dad couldn't relate to any of that. And that's really when it started. We were generations apart. I mean, I love to say we were planets apart, really. I mean, we just could not relate to each other. And then when I turned 17, the rebellious years, and we had some conflict, it was pretty unpleasant, and it just continued on like that for decades.
What when you look back, why is it? And I tell my daughters this, by the way. I'm sure that you say this to your own children, because parents are really smart. And when we're kids, especially that 15, 16, 17-year-old period, we don't think our parents are that smart, that we've evolved past them. And this is thousands of years old. This is nothing new, right? And then you grow up and you go, wow, yeah, they weren't that bad, because now you're a parent and you're going through it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, my relationship with my kids was very different, because they grew up like I grew up on the west side of Los Angeles, and I loved hanging out with them, and I loved coaching my daughter's soccer team, and taking my son to kung fu, jamming with my son. He played drums when he was 8, and I was on guitar. We're jamming together. I mean, we had a real connection with one another, but I still managed to make my own mistakes, Jimmy, and they still found a lot of reasons to flat out hate me, and some of those reasons were good ones. I mean,
Right.
that's just the way it went down. But we had a foundation of love to begin with and connection to begin with that I did not have with my dad.
And that does make you a better parent. It does. It just makes you a better parent. I'm going to just say it straight out. I wrote my dad an email like 30 years ago. I was pretty pissed off, and he had wrote me first, and it was in an email instead of a phone call. Apologizing for stuff, and I'm like, dude, you're 70 years old. And I wrote him back, and I was pretty direct with him, more direct than I should have been. And my point with all of that is we as parents, I took his mistakes and flipped them over.
Yeah.
I spent too much time with my daughter, right? I do the opposite. And I put that in the letter. I said, look, it sucked. And okay, I accept your apology, but it's made me the best dad in the world. Right. And do you feel the same? That's you
Yeah, I
take
learned a
those
lot.
lessons?
Yeah, I learned a lot of lessons about, the difficulties I had with my dad, and I got to be honest with you, a lot of it for me was just going sober, frankly, because I was just like, I was in a failing marriage myself, and I was like smoking my way through it to numb myself from the pain, and I wasn't present for my kids. And I just wasn't there, and they started to realize that there was something wrong with me, and that's when I decided I got to quit smoking weed and get my shit together. And that that was a big part of it because my dad was he was an admitted alcoholic, and it got in the way a lot of times in our relationship. As did my pot smoking as well. The two were a combustible combination, I like to say. So I took that out of the equation when my kids were 12 and 14 right away, and I was just very present for them and not running away from the tough stuff with them when things really got hard. And things do get hard when you split with a parent with their mom, and they're very upset about all that. I mean, stuff got really very, very difficult with them, but I hung in there, and I never needed to use or drink to make myself feel better. And I just stuck it out with my kids because they always knew that I was there for them. I loved them. I was still driving them to school. I was still involved in their lives. I came from a different generation, Jimmy. That's the whole point. My priorities were very different than my dad's. My dad had 3 priorities: his career, his career, his career. That was it, man. He was so and he said that in an interview. His priority was all about his work. And my mom raised my sister and I as a single parent, basically. But then later in his life, he flipped it around and he was really about family. And that's what really enabled us to reconcile and get back together again and reconnect and really find each other and have an incredible relationship the last years of his life.
Was he? Do you feel he was just making the effort to make up for lost time, and that he recognized that? But the value of putting career first, there's something to that too as well. But he needed to. He had some making up and mending to do.
Yeah, but it's like it's not something that's really conscious. I mean, we call it
Right.
it's kind of a living amends. It's just that he was present for me. I mean, I talk about the fact that when I got remarried again years later, and my second wife got sick, my dad was my go-to guy. He was the guy I went to for emotional support, which was something that would have been impossible years before when he was all focused on his career and it was all about him and his career. And all that changed, and that was to my benefit. Yeah, and he never would say he could never say I'm sorry, but he didn't have to. He just showed up for me. I could call him anytime, night or day. The guy was really emotionally available. That's the point. Emotionally available. And I was really grateful for that and honored, frankly, that he was willing to be that, my best friend during that period.
Everybody can go to Amazon and just look up Adam Nimoy and get the book too as well. It's a great read. I'm just letting everybody know. I want to talk about something I find extremely interesting and controversial at the same time, and it's the University Elementary School run by UCLA. Okay, for those that don't know, what is this, or what is this school?
Well, it's still there. It's an experimental. They call it a lab school. It's run by the Graduate School of Education at UCLA. They moved onto the UCLA campus in the late 50s. I arrived there around 1960. I was there from 1960 to 1968. It was a just terrific atmosphere because it was a beautiful campus, a lot of trees. We had a gully running through it, a little stream, and great teachers, very innovative. They did a lot of psychological testing. They take us out of class and they would give us all kinds of tests to do, and they had cameras that would turn on while we were in class because they were teaching, prospective teachers at UCLA. And it was just a great opportunity. And I was lucky to get in because they were looking for people from all stratas of society, all socioeconomic backgrounds. And at the time, my parents had nothing. I was the son of a struggling actor with no money, and they went, yeah, we want him. We want somebody of that, from that background. And I just got lucky and got in there, and it was one of the great educational experiences of my life because they taught you about to want to learn on your own, to try to inspire students. And we didn't have grades, and we didn't have regular testing. It was all very, very different, very innovative and very new. I mean, it was a big culture shock when I had to get into middle school and high school with the LA Unified School District. Was a whole shocking experience. But it really instilled with me a love of learning that I still have to this day. And I think had a lot to do with the success that I was thankfully able to achieve when I went into the UC system at Santa Barbara and then at Berkeley. So I'm really grateful for the experience.
When you say I'm so interested in this, and by the way, if I won the lottery like today, you know what I would do? I'd go back to school. That's what I would do. I would go back to school. I would go to UCLA. I would build the Jimmy Church Library, right, to make sure. And then I would go, that's what I would do. I love school. Man, I just love school. I just, teacher, bring it to me. But when you say psychological experiments, to some, they're going to jump back and go, what does that mean? But you're saying that this was a novel approach to teaching and looking for future leaders and teachers. What were some of these experiments?
Well, they were IQ tests mostly. They were really trying to figure out how the mind works. And you had to use a lot of mental tricks to figure out some of that stuff. And it was just really kind of gauging where you were in the learning process. And some of it was pretty interesting. I learned a lot of things about memorizing and visual memory, and there were a lot of interesting tests that they gave me. But I was very young at the time. I was there until I graduated when I was 12 years old in 1968. Most important, it was team teaching as well. You didn't have the same teacher every day. And in grades 4 through 6, they mixed everybody up and then split it into 3 different groups. So you would have a classroom you would be in with 4th, 5th, and 6th graders all in the same class. It was just a fascinating way of doing things, And again, it was such an idyllic. I still go there when they have open house because it's so beautiful just to go there and like meditate and remember, the things that I did and the friends I made there and the books I read when I was there. It's really it's a great memory for me, and they're still doing it. They're still there, innovative teaching, and I really appreciated being there.
So you don't have the pressure of grades. That's okay. That sounds fun to me. First off, right, where you don't have that pressure. But the second part is that must have opened up your mind, your subconscious, and try to fill that with knowledge because you're not worried about the other crap that goes along with this and the pressure of that.
Yeah, and Jimmy, the fact is they had these amazing teachers. We learned music. We had a great science professor. We had incredible math teachers. And we had an art teacher who was phenomenal. Every Friday we would be in the screening room, and she would be showing slides of artists. I mean, I was learning about guys from when I was very young about what the art world was about. I mean, we were exposed to a lot of interesting things. We were studying cultures. It was just I was learning Spanish. I mean, today my pronunciation is excellent because it was required every year I was there. I took a Spanish class, and it just instilled in me, a desire to know more. I mean, I'm like you. I would like to go back to school. If I won the lottery, I would just go back to school, and I would teach and I would study because there's nothing like teaching. It's such a great experience. But yeah, there's so much more that I want to learn and read about, and I love going to lectures and opening up my mind, different stuff. I mean, I'm just like you, man. I'm like just want to be a sponge and get it all, and just be exposed to as much as I can.
Does that, were you able to hold up? I like the way you mentioned LA Unified, which is like a dirty word here in LA County. But anyway, to go from that to the public school system here in Los Angeles, culture shock.
Yeah, very difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
very difficult for me because you have to take tests and they do have grades, and then there's a lot of social pressure, and oh boy, that was just a very difficult experience for me. And then I fell in with a party crowd, and I was having a little too much fun, and it was I got sidetracked. Let me just put it to you that way. I was part of the stoner group, and living that lifestyle for a while, which is really what brought me into a lot of conflict with my dad because he didn't appreciate that. I mean, to him, drugs and alcohol were completely different things. They were to me too. I mean, I thought smoking pot was harmless compared to what he was doing, and I was wrong. It's just all substance abuse. So, a lot of social pressure to do that and go to parties and have a good time. But I never lost the love of learning. Sometimes I just get lost in Wikipedia at night because I'm thinking up stuff that I remember reading in high school or in college, and it's like, what was that about the first triumvirate with Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus? When did
Right.
those guys get together, and what was that about? And this whole Roman Republic thing.
I do that all the time. Adam, I got to tell you. Okay, so it was on the Senate steps, right? Okay, let's back up. I do it all the time. I just
Yeah.
go back, and I can't tell you how many times I've researched these very specific parts of history, and I'm not doing cool. I'm not looking at cat videos, right? I'm researching deep history, and that's my love. And that, now, what year? We're so close in age. We're about 5 years apart, by the way. What year did you enter high school?
I was in high school from 71 to 74. Graduated
Okay,
in
so
74.
so that's the problem. You're playing guitar, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, right?
You better
Deep
believe it,
Purple.
baby.
Yeah, Deep Purple.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the distraction right there. Um, uh, did you lean towards the arts in high school? Did you struggle with the sciences and math, and did you find other stuff easier after your elementary school experience?
Well, I loved English. I always wanted to write. I've always been a writer. I've always kept journals, and I love reading literature and studying that stuff. That's what really turned me on. I happen to have an amazing physiology teacher at University High School. That turned me on, about human anatomy. I was kind of like, that was really cool. It's just a matter of who you get as a teacher. I mean, when I went to UC Santa Barbara, I took a geology class that just blew my mind. That guy was so good. It just depends on who you get. It's so easy to be influenced by, what kind of teachers you have, whether they have a passion for what they're doing and whether they know how to teach. I had a lot of bummers, even at Berkeley, one of the best colleges in the country. There were a lot of guys who were just like, oh my God, this is such a waste of time. And there were a couple of classes I was going to flunk out of. Luckily, I found like grad students who knew what the class was about. I seriously, Jimmy, there were a couple of times like a sociology class and a philosophy class on Aristotle. I didn't know what the hell was going on because the teacher was so bad. but a friend of mine was married to a grad student in philosophy, and I went to that guy's office for 3 hours, and he taught me the whole freaking course. You know what I mean? And it was fascinating. It just depends on who you get. It just depends. I mean, anything could be really cool if somebody can make it, can explain it in a way that you can relate to.
It's really funny how you can kind of separate students almost right down the middle, like 50-50. Those that are there to get their learn on, and those that are there on somebody else's dime. Right? It's like two different things. It's two different attitudes, and the way that there are, right, the serious students that want to just graduate with the best and get, and the other ones that are there to just literally cruise through it. And how do you deal with that as a teacher?
Well, I had to deal with that when I was teaching film at the New York Film Academy. I was there when we had a huge influx of foreign students, and some of them didn't speak English. That's challenging, I got to tell you. When you lose those people because they just don't know what's going on, that's where it really gets difficult. But there's always a few who are really into what you're doing and believe in it. And if you're passionate about what you're teaching, you're going to find students who get turned on. That's the whole trick of it. And I learned that in college. I had these great professors who were really passionate about what they were trying to, the information they were trying to get across. And I brought that with me. Passion. Enthusiasm is infectious, we would say. My dad would say that. And the same thing on the set. When I came onto a set to direct a TV show, and I was like, this is going to be great. I love this show. We got a great episode. Let's just kick some ass for 8 days when we shoot this sucker. Then everybody gets turned on by that, I mean, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the set, no matter where you are, if you really love what you're doing, then people will really respond to that.
Can I ask you? Well, these are all personal questions, but you've got this creative side, and then you go back to school, and I want to know if I've got this entirely correct. You go back to school for law, right? And you go to Loyola, and you become, of all things, an entertainment attorney.
Yeah.
Is that really Adam? Or was that an alter, right? That's like bizarre
reality.
World. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like when I directed Sliders, there was an alternate reality going on. I tell you, Jimmy, I really wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to go to law school. I wanted to create my own identity. I wanted to do something my dad could not do. I wanted to stay in school and keep learning. I had some great instructors at Loyola. It was a really fabulous school. But the practice of law was not what I expected it to be. They don't really tell you what it's going to be. And when I got out there and was doing it, I just realized pretty quickly that there's no way I can keep doing this for the rest of my life. I mean, there's some people who are born to do that. And I've got some friends, who are entertainment lawyers and music attorneys. And these are pretty heavyweight people. They're just born to do that stuff and be, behind the scenes. And make wheel and deal and be in an office all day and push paper all day and be on the phone all day. That's not my thing at all, because I went to an acting class and that's when I realized, holy moly, this is so much cooler, or if I'd been a musician, I would have gone that route, but I was just not good enough, That's why, in terms of that, talent skipped a generation. And my dad had the acting bug and my son had the music bug, you know what I mean? And they were very passionate about that. And they were going to make it work no matter what. That wasn't going to be my thing. But I did have creative urges, and I did want to, get involved with filmmaking. And I was lucky I had my dad to help me. And actually, he taught me a lot about the craft of filmmaking. And I went to night classes at UCLA Extension and private directing classes. And I was in an acting class with my dad's acting instructor, Jeff Corey, to really get myself up to par. And it took a while. It took several episodes for me to get my sea legs. But it really happened, actually, on the episode I made with my dad, The Outer Limits. We did a remake of an episode that he was in, and he and I, shot that thing up in Vancouver, and we just kicked ass. And it was like, after that, I was just off and running, and that was really an amazing experience.
One of the coolest things that we have here in LA is UCLA Extension. The audience doesn't know what we're talking. I have a stack of UCLA Extension certificates. Became an addiction of mine, by the way. I need a 12-step program at some point for UCLA Extension, because most all the teachers that I had, they're all professionals in the industry, right? They're very passionate for, these aren't tenured, right? They're there for the love of it.
Yeah.
And I was just taking everything that I could. I took scene painting, I took screenwriting, I took playwriting, I took animation. I just took everything that I could, and was so proud of what to this day, I used what I learned at UCLA Extension. It's just incredible that we have that here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real chance for people to like open their minds, man, and challenge themselves and push themselves and keep, it's just continuous learning. I mean, look, it's not over until we're like, dead and gone. Well, I'm always learning, I'm always expanding, I'm always trying to challenge myself. There's so much out there, there's so much to know, there's so many interesting people to interact with. There's nothing like teaching, I think. I mean, there's nothing like, turning people on and getting passionate about stuff, and you learn a lot from your students too. I still have students I keep in touch with from the film school, even though it's been a while since I've taught there. People I was teaching like 10, 15 years ago. And so it's just, yeah, UCLA Extension was really helpful to me. We're lucky we have that in this town. And Santa Monica College also has adult education as well. And it's a really good program.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I wanted to your approach, and then I want to move on. We've got very little time left. Do you feel that it's most effective as a teacher? I want people to go out there and get their learn on. Are you the best friend teacher, or how do you approach it? Do you want to be likable, or do you want to get shit done?
I got to tell you, Jimmy, it's like it's very interesting. I have my own way of doing stuff, here's the point that I want to make, and that is that I had enough experience directing TV to fool my students into believing I knew what I was talking about. That's what it came down to. I had just enough experience working 10 seasons directing television to fool those people into believing that I knew what I was talking about. And the fact is, I just do my own thing, but I'm interested. I do want to be their friend. I do want to be helpful to them. I do want to connect with the students. I always praise the work that came in when they shot stuff. I always started off praising their work, and then we would talk about some of the issues they had. But I believe there's a right way to do stuff of storytelling. And again, it's story and it's and it's performance and it's technique. And I feel passionate about the work. And I think the students should be passionate about the work. And if they're not, they're in the wrong freaking business. I mean, you can't be in it for the money or the fame or the celebrity, whatever field you're going to be in, as an actor, as a writer, as a producer, as a director. You just have to love the work and focus on the work and find some personal connection to the work. That's what I love doing, and inspiring people. That's all I care about. I really want them to feel like they're learning something and they feel inspired and they're going to go out and do stuff. And I'm also harsh with them too, but I do it in a very loving, manner. I'll say stuff like, "What do you mean there's no camera cards? Who screwed that up? We got to sit around here now and wait for someone to come up with the camera cards? We can't shoot anything? What the hell? I'm going to go sit, I'm going to go read War and Peace and sit in my chair over, by the side there. Wake me up when you guys are ready to go, because you're wasting my time." I mean, I would do stuff like that. I would kick them around, and I'm like, I would really push the students, but always in like, in a supportive way, a creative way, to try to be helpful to them. Once in a while, I would get down on a student, because they were just going too far afield, too experimental in my class, which is not what my classes are about. I mean, that's fine if they want to be experimental. I don't teach experimental film, that kind of thing.
So you're not Italian. You're not an Italian filmmaker.
No.
Well,
hey, wait a minute. I am a Fellini fanatic.
I was just going to bring that up.
Slow down here for a second. 8.5 is a film that made a huge impression on me, and I still try to emulate the shots in that film.
The Bicycle Thief, right?
Bicycle Thief is amazing. Vittorio De Sica, amazing. I love I love a lot of Italian cinema. There's no doubt about it. that's the thing, that's so great about teaching filmmaking is that you try to inspire the students to bring everything that they experienced into their life into the classroom and onto the film. Everything. That's what
Who would?
makes it exciting.
I wanted to ask you this earlier. I'm so glad you brought up Fellini. Who? And then I'm going to flip this over on you, and I'm going to allow you to ask me the same question. Who is the Fellini of today? Who moves you today? What director is doing the right stuff?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, I'm still a Ridley Scott fan. I mean, that's just my go-to guy. I mean, he's made more great films. Living director. I just love his stuff. I mean, he's had some misses too. They all do. Everybody does. I'm trying to think of who else I would. I don't know, man. I don't want to. I don't even want to name names. I don't want to pigeonhole myself. There's so much great stuff out there that's still being made. I just, I'm like Orson Welles. I try to learn from the masters. Orson's like, well, who did you study? And he said, well, I studied, the three masters, and by that I mean John Ford, and John Ford.
Right.
I mean, we have such a rich history of filmmaking. I mean, I like Frank Capra. I love It Happened One Night. The first rom-com. I love stuff like that. I love a lot of filmmakers. There's a lot of great filmmakers out there. I don't even want to, single out anybody.
I'm really into, again, I appreciate everybody's approach, but I like Luc Besson.
I love Luc Besson. Yeah.
He
freaks
me out. It freaks me out. Freaks me out. His new film, Dog Man. Yeah, really good. But Wes Anderson. I just think he's
Rushmore, one of my top films. Rushmore, totally inspirational.
When I didn't see Bottle Rocket yet, right? When Rushmore first came out, and I lucked onto that, right? I'm scrolling through DirecTV, right? New film, Rushmore. Okay, all right. I ended up becoming friends with Jason Schwartzman later and all of that. Anyway, I watched Rushmore, and the soundtrack and the way that was done, I thought it was one of the greatest films I had ever seen. And I'm very rarely moved like that. And I got to the end, I thought, this is going to be one of the great ones. This is a good film. And then I find out later that he wrote the film around the music. Isn't that an interesting approach, right? He had songs came first. Yeah.
It worked. I love that film. It really put him on the map.
And that's my I'm just kind of weird and quirky when it comes to that. Now, I want to talk about Jonah and your kids. Your approach to life, and then you turn around and you mentioned jamming, right? Your son was playing drums. He plays guitar. I'm just going to let everybody know he plays guitar for the Offspring, multi-instrumentalist, I might add.
Yeah, that's true.
For the Offspring, which he's been doing for, almost 9 years, something like that, right?
Oh, he's been with them for 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that has your attitude has rinsed down into the DNA of Jonah, and your daughter is working for Paramount, right? So these qualities, has it been passed on?
Well, yeah. I mean, I brainwashed Jonah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I brainwashed that kid completely. I mean, I turned him on to Smash, that record, when he was a little kid. That record came out, he was 2 years old. I turned him on to the Offspring. I loved those guys back then. I just adored those guys. And, I used to jam with Jonah, and I exposed him to a lot of different music. I was into a lot of different things. I was a little dismayed when he became a metalhead, instead of a deadhead. He went the metal route. That was kind of odd to me, how he, but it really helped him because he learned how to really play fast, and it really got him familiar with the fingerboard pretty quickly. And he was pretty amazing at it. And now the problem with Jonah was that he wouldn't do any homework whatsoever, because what's the point of 8th grade history when you're going to be a rock star?
Right.
It was so frustrating with him. But he was passionate about what he was doing. My dad could relate to what Jonah was all about, because my dad was also not a very good student academically, even though he's a very bright man. And he could see in Jonah what his parents could not see in him. And Jonah just got lucky. He got the call when they were in Rome. They needed somebody right away in an emergency, and Jonah was old enough and had enough experience, and he knew somebody who knew them, and he went to fill in with them, and he never left the band. And I love traveling around with those guys and standing off, on in the wings on stage and jumping around like a freaking idiot while those guys go through their repertoire. I mean, I love those guys and I love what he's doing, and I'm really proud of the work. They've really turned him into a professional, because they're very serious about the work. These guys are like no nonsense.
No, they're top shelf. They're top world class. That it's a very rare opportunity to get a break like that.
Oh yeah.
There are levels of, and the offspring are at the very tippity top of the tippity top. But you get to watch your son, dude. I mean, how cool is that?
It's amazing.
I mean, dad to dad. I just let me live vicariously for a moment. What's that like?
It's freaking phenomenal. I love being on stage and watching those guys. I love those guys. I love Noodles and Dexter. I've always loved those guys, and they are consummate professionals. And they're like mentoring Jonah. They really are like father figures to him, because they really know what they're doing, and they're really in the moment, and they know what's important, and they're focused on the work, and they're still hungry to really to keep going to another level. And when they play in front of 100,000 people, Jimmy, it's freaking amazing. It's insane. It's insane. And there's Jonah. He couldn't be in a better band right now for what he wants to do and his taste of music. We couldn't have picked a better band. We're so lucky. I love traveling around with them, because then I can hang out with them when they don't have so many friends and family around. It's just me and Jonah, and and the guys in the band. It's a really tight band right now. I love those guys, and I don't know. It's a real privilege, really, to know them.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Like I said, father to father, parent to parent. That's just amazing. The last thing that I want to discuss is it's one of the touchiest subjects out there right now, but you're in the middle of it, and I want your take. And that is artificial intelligence and what is going on, and the ability to not only recreate and mimic and go and do stuff visually and with audio, and achieve personas. Nobody is immune to this, and it's replacing jobs is one thing, but it's the ability to very freely steal. Right? Steal. That's what you're doing. And nobody's getting paid for it. This is a brave new world moving forward. And it seems like we're ahead of our skis, that we're not slowing this down. Do you feel the threat in the entertainment industry and film and artist rights moving forward?
Well, yeah, it's a big concern. Of course it is. I mean, intellectual property is intellectual property. It's very hard to maintain it, to protect it, and to get the rightful owner of it compensated for their work. We've been dealing with this since streaming services began with the music industry. Beginning with Napster, people were just file swapping for free. I mean, this is one of the problems, is that people still think they're entitled to free music, and it's hard for people to make a living at these things. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not that well versed in all the ins and outs of the repercussions of it, but it's of concern, obviously. But then again, there's a lot of advantages to having, the ability, the new technology that's coming in. I was talking about the fact that, Rod Roddenberry is getting involved with a company, and they can recreate a performance of Spock from scratch, basically, using another actor and then putting on my dad's features onto that actor using AI technology. And I think it's pretty cool, frankly, what they're doing. I mean, I dig it. I think it's great. I hope it goes forward, frankly. It's just my personal opinion. I think my dad would be okay with it, if the right material came along, because it's always about story. It was always about story with him. And again, yeah, we're gonna have to be very careful. We maybe are getting ahead of ourselves. I'm concerned as anybody else is.
What about compensation? I mean, it seems like there needs to be. I know that we had these two strikes, and this was part of the negotiations, but there needs to be some regulation here. There needs to be some legislation, and whether you're Tom Cruise or an actor said to me once. I'm not going to say his name. You know who he is, but he said to me once. He goes, man, there's only 200 working actors in LA. I'm lucky to be one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's right. And so when you need to be compensated, if your image is on that screen, whether you cut the scene live or it's digital and it's AI, that's you. That's your intellectual property, and you should be compensated for that. And we just don't have any regulation set in place. You got to have it written into a contract up front, but there's nothing protecting you if it happens.
Well, I think that was part of the negotiation with the Screen Actors Guild.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and so there's definitely some provisions in there. Look, who knows? I don't know where it's going. Who can say? I don't know. We're in the wild, wild west with all that right now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
You know who? It's the caterers, the camera people. There was and this came up in the strike. So I'm reading this thing on Reddit, and they're talking about this scene in this particular TV show that just came out. Right, that it was an AI scene. The actor was not in the scene, and this is part of the argument with this strike. And I'm like, wait a minute, I saw that episode. So I go back, Adam, I'll watch it. I watch the episode.
Yeah.
And I watch the scene.
Yeah.
And I go, no, that's really him. What are they talking about? And then that's when I went, oh, crap. I just got fooled. That is the problem. Oh, he didn't shoot that scene.
Yeah.
And the cameraman didn't shoot that scene. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that is a real issue. I got fooled. It's a really big deal. I don't know how humans are going to react to seeing possibly the majority. What do you do? Okay, here's an example. New film. I'll make something up. Mission Impossible 10, The New Ice Age, right? Okay. Starring Tom Cruise. But Tom Cruise is not in the film. It's AI. Does the world care now? It's the image of Tom Cruise. His name is in the credits. He's been paid, but he didn't shoot any scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we okay because that's where we're going. Does the world care, or should they?
Well, does Tom Cruise care?
Probably
if he doesn't care, then that's okay with me. I don't know.
Probably not. Adam, I want to thank you for the show tonight. And where can everybody go and get your book? Can they get autographed copies?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of places. Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Write to them. They've got some signed copies. The Village Well here in Culver City, California. They've got signed copies. I live near there, so I can get you a signed copy through there. Go to my website to find out where else you can get it at Goodreads and Amazon, and hopefully your local bookseller will have it. It's called The Most Human, if I may. The Most Human, Reconciling with My Father, Leonard Nimoy. Just came out the second week of June, and I've been going around the country talking about it, and I worked hard on it. I'm really proud of the work in there, and I'm proud of my relationship with my dad, that we were able to find a way back to each other and have a really a deep connection with one another the last years of his life. So I'm really proud of the work.
I have the audio book, and that's why I brought up the narration. I'm just letting you know.
Oh,
It's really
you.
well done. It's really well done. And I know the challenges of narration. It's what I do, right? Very well done. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you so much, Adam. Great conversation tonight. I look forward to our next one. Thank you so much.
Hey, Jimmy, live long and prosper, my friend.
Right back at you. Thank you, Adam. Behave.
Take care.
Adam Nimoy, everybody. And again, his links are below, adamnimoy.com. Tomorrow night, Paula Harris is going to be with us. We're going to be talking about UFOs and ET and all the latest updates in our UFO community. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Tappy.